Okay, long overdue. This Composition 1 makeup class. I'm going to lecture probably only for about 20 minutes because this this chapter isn't that long. And my plan is to put on some links to examples of other people we talked about in class. But let's start from the beginning here. We're doing a response paper. You have to write it about an exceptional person. Several people asked me some good questions. Your purpose and your perspective and the description are going to produce some sort of analysis or point of view, right? Some sort of version, really, of this person. And let's be honest, the more famous a person knows, the more things are said about them. A lot of the things don't make sense. Son Heung-min seems like a really good guy, and I think that's probably true. In other cases, it's a little bit more ambiguous. Privacy and public life are, opposed often. The way you behave in public usually is better. And it shouldn't be that way, but this semester I've gotten some emails from people who are just, I don't think they would ever say it to my face, but you feel like on the internet, or you feel like when people don't know who you are, or when you're writing, you can just be rude and you can be insulting, and that's okay, and people are not going to react to that or be angry or frustrated or upset. You can't just run around saying whatever you want for no reason. Otherwise, we end up with a society that is collapsing, where, absolute freedom is what we call anarchy. So if everybody went around saying exactly what they thought about everybody else, like if you're really angry at somebody and you just said every time you thought something bad about somebody, you said you're ugly or you hate them, or whenever you couldn't control yourself in public, it sort of means that your social skills are undeveloped. It sort of means that you haven't grown up and you haven't learned a discipline. When little kids are running around in kindergarten or nursery school, they bite each other, and they have to be told, don't bite your friend. He's your friend. And then the kid cries, and he's like, I didn't know I couldn't bite him. Well, there are rules. You have to follow them. So, to what extent you need to come up with your own idea. You need to come up with your own concept, your own purposes. Why are you talking about this person? Is this a person who grew up, and as a result of their environment when they grew up, that they could never really be stable and develop, an adult personality? I'm just thinking of Michael Jackson and Macaulay Culkin again, like I did in class. It's just like, the reason those guys got along is because Michael Jackson was a childhood celebrity, and he became so famous that he couldn't go anywhere, and Macaulay Culkin would sit down at a restaurant and everybody would go nuts because it's like the Home Alone guy. So, we talked about also Daniel Radcliffe being Harry Potter. But, separate the person from the character, if it's an actor. But at the same time, there are other, teachers have personalities too. I think if you met me outside the classroom, and I have to always control myself and try and be the best instructor and lecturer I can, regardless as to how many students don't pay attention, are rude, don't listen to instructions, or sleep in the middle of the class. I try to ignore that behavior as much as possible, but it's always, if I was in a situation where I was playing a soccer game and you were on my team and you were being lazy, I would yell at you, right? But I'm your professor, so I'm not going to yell at you for not doing your homework or yell at you, for sleeping in class. But if you send me a message or you talk rudely to me, then it's up to me to control myself, and it's up to the student to control themselves too. Perhaps one of the greatest recent examples is I don't know if you're familiar, but you should just YouTube it. Will Smith won an Oscar for playing King Richard, and then Chris Rock was a comedian and he made a joke about his wife, and suddenly he stood up and walked up onto the stage and slapped him in the face as hard as he could, fairly hard, and said, "Keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth." And so that changes your perception of a person. Why did he do that though? Is it because of the stress of his marriage, of his career is amazing. He has more money than anybody would want to have. But you have to get through all of that distortion and all that disinformation and try and get down to like the root of the problem. I think Will Smith tried his best to keep his marriage and his family together, and his wife may be the biggest factor in his overreaction. You're the one who has to judge that, but you have to find some evidence for that. If you find out that Will Smith almost divorced his wife and that she constantly, talks about how she's not in love with him anymore, and they go on to a TV show and he makes her cry on national TV, and then somebody makes a joke after he has this great achievement and she's sitting right beside him. It doesn't take a very angry person, but I think he had a hard time growing up. So he does have some trauma, some anger deep inside, and it just expressed itself. I'm not saying he should be forgiven. Daniel Radcliffe, is he ever going to escape from the typecast of being Harry Potter? Or are people going to think he's Harry Potter forever? Jim Carrey, when I was young, was a comedian, and everybody thought he was just going to do comedy forever, and everybody loved it, so there was no problem with that. But he wanted to do other acting roles, so he tried to break out of his typecast, and he did. Some actors are capable of doing that, and some are not. Now, like I said, no politics. We're taking a break from politics. You are Korean citizens. Make your own decisions on next Tuesday when we have no class. Monday, students, we do, but Tuesday we have no composition 1. So finish your work, and just like you do when you're looking at an exceptional person. Exceptionalism really means superiority, different by superiority, because one of the students, if she doesn't mind mentioning her name, I think it was Insa, said, like, isn't exceptional mean really good? It does, but it means special, but it depends on who's viewing how exceptional you are, right? You know what I mean? If you're an exceptionally good businessman and you make the most money in the world, and then you, not naming any names because there's lots of them, we'll just choose somebody not recent, but just going back to our British and American culture class, the famous people like Rockefeller or Carnegie or something, they spent their life crushing other companies and working their employees to the limit. Bill Gates too. Jeff Bezos too. They always talk about how hard it is to work at Amazon. Tesla's no different. They get paid, but they work so hard that it's really, Samsung has nothing on these guys. You know what I mean? They're doing 12-hour shifts. They're sleeping in their cars, and they still get fired anyway. At least in Korea, if you're doing that stuff, they can't fire you. But, you know, choose a personality, an athlete, somebody. In the book, they talk about this guy, Jack Collins. He's a good example of a person who went through some really hard times and, you know, rehabilitated himself and used his negative experiences and his difficulties in order to share with other people to help them avoid, you know, making the same mistakes. Some of the best public speakers, some of the best advisors and counselors are people that have gone through terrible things, and they can help you better than somebody. I mean, sometimes you need a psychologist or you need a doctor who's been trained and has, you know, medical technology and knowledge for you. But sometimes you just need somebody who has gone through horrible things and survived and learned how to be happy despite all the bad things that have happened to them. So, as I said, negative or positive, or both, right? Successful or not, right? Failure. Make sure at the beginning you have an idea and you know why you're talking about this person. This person has to be talked about because I want to show a particular way of understanding this person's life and what good things and bad things we should take from them. Organize it, perspective, description, analysis, you know, all together, and then ultimately you're going to come up with a version of the person. It's not going to be perfect, but when you do your research, you have to expand your exposure, you have to look deep, you have to go to conservative news, you have to go to liberal news, you have to go to autobiographies, you have to go on the internet. The most credible, you know, sources, the references I'm really looking for are sort of books that have been published and that they've been sort of proofread, checked, and become acknowledged as important versions of this person. You know, I talked about Napoleon the other day. There's about 6,000 biographies about Napoleon. Which one is the real Napoleon? I'm not going to be able to tell you that. But you have to try and get through some of those barriers, some of those, you know, rumors, some of those insults, some of the praise, some of the people, like, I mean, Taylor Swift. You can't say anything bad about Taylor Swift, or like 10 million or 100 million Swifties say horrible things about you on the internet. I think Taylor Swift's not perfect. She's not a bad woman, and she's a great singer and composer, and I like her boyfriend, and I like football, but she definitely does things. She makes mistakes, and she does things. I mean, she's flying around in a private jet, and we are experiencing some pretty severe climate problems. Taylor Swift's not helping. Quite frankly, the more people flying in private jets, the faster the planet is going to get destroyed. So, you know, you get together the data and the description and the research, and then you decide what idea, you're going to focus on. Decide why you want to talk about this person. Give some perspective. Describe what their life is like, what happened to them. Analyze that, and then you're going to produce a version of that person. How good it is or how bad it is not my job. I'm just going to read it, and it's going to be, you know, based on organization, logic, how persuasive it is, whether the sources and the support are solid and well connected to what you write. And that's really all there is to chapter 4. It's not that complicated. I'm going to throw up a couple videos in addition to this one because it's short. So I'm going to throw up the Tuesday classes didn't get to watch Mr. Bean because Mr. Bean's a great example of a idiosyncratic character who's very neurotic, and he's just a creation out of the mind of an actor. And you can talk about Mr. Bean, but you have to talk about Rowan Atkinson, the actor. He's the one who's the mastermind. He's the one who puts all that together and creates the magic formula for trans-cultural comedy that Mr. Bean became. So lots of options: scientists, entertainers, athletes, famous professors, inventors. Just don't go too far back because I said you need like a lot of information. You should have as much information as possible just to make sure that what you're writing is doesn't have too many mistakes and is accurate as possible. So don't go back to Shakespeare. We don't know enough about that, and it takes too long to find that information. So choose somebody who's fairly famous, and if they're not alive now, somebody who has recently passed away. So within 100 years, whoever you choose, international person, all good. I hope that I explained that enough. And if there's any questions, you can email me. And if it's a good question, I'll post it on the notification board and everybody can see it. Okay? You all have a sample to follow. Just remember, you're doing exceptional person, not character. Yeah, finally done. So I will see you Tuesday, people, in 2 weeks, and Monday, people, after the weekend. Okay, have a good week and enjoy MT. Don't go too hard.